Today we will discuss that what is prospectus. See, the prospectus is an offer to the invitation for purchase of its shares and debenture, and shares and debentures are collectively known as securities. So basically prospectus is not the invitation to purchase, it is offer to the invitations to the public. It is informed that this company have this much of the share, and any interested party can come and make an invitation, like we discuss under the contract law. That and this case boot chemist, where we have discussed that the invitation or the proposal or the offer is different from the invitation to make the offer. So here the prospectus in itself is not an invitation for purchase of the shares and debenture, but it is just an offer. Okay. Now, why the company issue prospectus, or what is the need? See, company issues the prospectus whenever company need money. So company can gather money from two way. One is by selling its shares or making other persons also the members of the company, and the second is by borrowing the money through the debentures and acknowledging that debt. Now, from this understanding, we will discuss the statutory provision, because along with the prospectus there are some consequences, and the consequences are that the corporate people, the business people always try to mislead the general public, and then the general public, on believing the prospectus, that brochure of information correct, purchase the shares and debenture, invest their hard earned money into that company, and after some time it was found that those information were not correct. And so to compensate those persons, or to avoid such situations, the legislature has enacted some provision in the Companies Act, and these provisions with respect to the prospectus are in the chapter 3 of the Companies Act, from section 23 to 42. Along with that, the Parliament has passed the special statute on this particular subject, and that name of that the statute is the Securities Contract Regulation Act 1956. There is another regulation, Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992, and both these legislation are exclusively for the securities, the making of the contract. Now the definition we will read here, and section 2 subsection or clause 270 of the Companies Act define the prospectus, and the legislature has made this definition as to include different types of the prospectus also, along with the basic purpose of the prospectus. With that understanding, can any of you read section 270?
May I?
Yeah.
Section 2, subsection 70. Prospectus means any document described or issued as a prospectus and includes a red herring prospectus referred to in section 32, or self prospectus referred to in section 31, or any notice, circular, advertisement, or other document inviting offers from the public for the subscription or purchase of any securities of a body corporate.
Yeah. So basically this definition has three parts. The first part is that if the company issues any document, and company describe this document as the prospectus. So that would be prospectus. There is nothing more to prove about it. Okay, but sometimes these corporate people, they very smartly, they issue in the form of notice, advertisement, circular or कोई और न्यू नेम से suppose they issue a document. Okay, and if that document, if we see that document is inviting the offer from the public, it is inviting offer from the public, that come and make the invitation for what? For the subscription or purchase of any securities of body corporate. Okay, so any document whose basic purpose is that it is in form of invitation from the inviting the offer from the public for the purchase of the shares and debenture. Securities are shares and debenture. And the third part is that it may be the different kinds of the prospectus that have been defined in the chapter 3, like the red herring prospectus under section 32, self prospectus under section 31. So these prospectus also, because these in these name self prospectus and red herring prospectus, they have the prospectus in their name itself. But even if the company issue any other the document, the company is saying that it is notice or it is advertisement or it is circular or by any other name, but by seeing the purpose of that document, if that is inviting the offer from the public for the purchase of the shares and debenture, then it would be prospectus. So section 270 is drafted to cover all types of the document issued by the company for the purpose of giving the information to the public, so that public may make the offer to the company for purchase of the securities of the body corporate. Okay, so this is the gist of the section 270. Okay, again we can discuss that section 270 is divided into three parts. The first part, if the document issued by the company is with the name prospectus, so that document would be prospectus. Second is that red herring prospectus as defined under section 32, self prospectus as defined under section 31, that document would also be prospectus. And the third one is in the form of the residuary clause. You have the capacity to include that any document. Company is not saying, the first part the company itself is saying that it is prospectus. In the third, the company is not saying that the document is the prospectus. The document may be by any name, circular, notice, advertisement or by any other name. But the very purpose of that document is that it is actually inviting the offer from the general public for the purchase of securities of the body corporate. Now what is securities? Because as I have said that the securities generally means shares and debenture and other their derivative etc. Section 281 of the Companies Act defines that what is securities. So it is better to discuss securities also here, so that it would be much better for you to understand. Yes, Abhishek, read section 281.
Sure, sir. Securities means the securities as defined in clause H of section 2 of the Securities Contracts Regulation Act 1956, Act 42 of 1956.
Yeah. So here securities has been defined, means securities means same as it is defined under the section 2H of the Securities Contract Regulation Act 1956. Section 281 is not defining, but it's saying that it has the same meaning as define it. This type of the definition we will find at many places. Sales of goods act and the partnership. In the definition clause you will find that the last the definition is that if there is any word used in the partnership acts or sales of goods act, and if that had not been defined here, then that would have the same meaning if it has been defined in the Indian Contract Act. And why that is there? Because earlier these partnership act, sales of goods act were also the part of the Indian Contract Act under different chapters, but then it was required to have the specific legislation. So maybe in the new legislation all words has not been defined, and so it's directing back to the Indian Contract Act. So similarly here also, and so we have to take help of the the Securities Contract Regulation Act 1956. For your convenience I have downloaded this act also, and it is before you, this section 2H, securities. Yes, read securities includes.
Securities include shares, scripts, stock, bonds, debentures, debenture stock, or other marketable securities of a like nature in or of any incorporated company or other body corporate.
And then 1A derivatives.
A derivative.
Yeah, then there are further also.
1B, units or any other instrument issued by any collective investment scheme to the investors in such schemes. 1C, security receipt as defined in clause ZB of section 2 of the Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest Act 2002. 1D, units or any other such instrument issued by the investors under any mutual fund scheme. 2. Government securities. 2A, such other instruments as may be declared by the central government to be securities. 3. Rights or interest in securities.
Yeah. So from this definition we have learned that the security means shares, debentures, stocks, derivatives, government securities, even the mutual fund, and any other instrument as may be declared by the central government as the securities, and the interest or right arises from the securities. Like any interest arises from the immovable property is immovable property, and any interest arises from the movable property is also movable property. Suppose you have a flat and you gave it to the on the lease. Okay, so this lease right means right to possess, right to enjoyment. So the person to whom you have given your premises on the lease have also the immovable property. And what is that immovable property? Right to enjoyment. So this right to enjoyment is the interest arises from the immovable property. So here the clause 3 that saying the rights and interest in the securities is also indicating with that nature. Now you see section 44 of the the Companies Act. Section 44 make shares and debentures as the movable property, and that can be traded, and a market where the purchase and shares of the stocks and debenture take place is known as the stock market. Section 3 of the Securities and Exchange Board of India 1992 is established to protect the interest of the shareholder. Now if you see here section 2J on the Securities Contract Regulation Act that define that what is stock exchange. I am reading section 2J. Stock exchange means any body of individual, whether incorporated or not, constituted before the corporatization and demutualization under section 4A and 4B. B. A body corporate incorporated under Companies Act, whether under the scheme of corporatization or demutualization or otherwise, for purpose of assisting, regulating, controlling the business of buying, selling or dealing in the securities. So this is the stock exchange that any body corporate, any body of individual, whether corporated, incorporated under the Companies Act or under any other otherwise, if have the purpose of assisting, regulating, controlling with respect to the business of buying, selling and dealing of the securities, so that would be the stock exchange.